Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Sara, and I'd like to introduce you to our next session, which is actually going to be a unique combination of both of our next two topics with our leaders Dalia Mogahed and Suhib Webb, inshallah. Oftentimes, our dreams and aspirations seem nearly impossible or far away. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself, however, has assured us countless times in the Quran that He is the most powerful, capable of all things. No dream is too big for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Dalia Mogahed and Imam Suhib Webb, inshallah, will speak about how we can dream big and ignore those who think too small, and how we can be amongst those few who dream big and accomplish those goals. Sister Dalia Mogahed is the Director of Research at ISPU, the Institute for Social Policy and Understanding, where she leads the organization's pioneering research leadership programs on American Muslims. President Barack Obama appointed Mogahed to the President's Advocacy Council on Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships in 2009. Her 2016 TED Talk was named one of the top TED Talks that year. She is a frequent expert commentator in global media outlets and international forums. She is also the CEO of Mogahed Counseling. Imam Suhib William Webb has a degree in education from the University of Central Oklahoma and in Islamic law from Al-Azhar University in Cairo. He was named as a faith leader to watch by the Center for American Progress in 2016, selected by the Muslim community as one of CNN's 25 most influential leaders, as well as one of 500 of the most influential Muslims by the Royal Islamic Studies Center in 2017. He is currently the resident scholar at the ICNYU and teaches a course at NYU on Islamic law and ethics. Please help me welcome Dalia Mogahed and Suhib Webb.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Imam Suhaib and I thought that it would be more beneficial to all of you if we made this a conversation instead of two separate lectures. You've been listening to lectures all day, and perhaps a dialogue would be more fruitful.
Yeah, most definitely. We thought that both of us had very powerful topics. One was on dreams and achieving dreams, and then one was being, that rare person that kind of sets his or herself, فَطُوبَى لِلْغُرَبَاء, right? The hadith says that strangers are those who will enter paradise. So we thought maybe having a conversation would be better than just, kind of talking at people.
So I'm going to start off. Imam Suhaib, you engage young people every single day. You've traveled the world, you've lived in so many different cultures. What have you seen that has worked in achieving big dreams? What does it take to make big dreams happen?
That's a good question, mashallah. I think that there's like four kind of consistent qualities that I see amongst people, especially young people, who've like achieved it. We were talking backstage, and I told her I heard this interview with Kendrick Lamar. And he said that he wrote like thousands of songs, but he only made like 4 to 5 records. So he was saying, out of those 1,000 songs, which are all potential dreams, this is all I could produce. So the first quality that I've seen in young people is they realize that their youth is their capital. As the Prophet says, أَشَابْ نَشَ فِي عِبَادَةِ اللَّهِ. A young person understands that they use their youth for worship. So number one is they don't get caught up in kind of the idea that youth is a liability not to be serious. That youth is like a liability to like kick it. They realize like, hey, this is this is like a really blessed time. And they use that, what we call istithmar waqt, right? Like they take the fruit of that time. You have any thoughts on that before I think there's 3 or 4 more. But time in that age, in that capacity and energy that they have.
No, I think it's really important that we understand the value of time and the value of allowing young people to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes rather than legislating their every minute.
And I've also seen that these people see it as being baked and not microwaved. Like this is a process. So they're not like al-ajjalatu min ash-shaytan, right? Like I'm gonna come over here because we got people over here. What's going on, everybody over here? How y'all doing? MashaAllah. Woo! They're louder over here than your side. I can't hear anybody over here. Wow. What you gonna do? Well, I don't know. Let's see which group can say La ilaha illallah the loudest. So we'll start here. But that's not fair. The people in the middle joined you. So why don't the people here join you and we'll see what happens. Ready? Let's go one more time. All right, we're going to let Sister Dalia be the judge. So, mashallah, that was awesome. So one thing I've seen is that they see it as a process. It's not simply like, I'm going to do it in a day or 2. And Allah says in the Quran, right? كَزَرْعٍ أَخْرَجَ شَطَأْهُ كَأَزَرَهُ فَاسْتَغْلَدَ فَاسْتَوَى عَلَى السُّوقِ. Like they're like a seed that grew. So they recognize that that time's important, but they're not so impulsive that they're like quick. They realize it's being baked, it's not being microwaved. The second thing, and I think this is where you can really bring some incredible kind of tenor to the discussion, is they always have good mentors. Even interlocutors, they don't just have people around them that's what I don't like about, I have to like you. No, I may like you, but there's certain things about you that I may see that you need help with, right? Yeah. As a friend. So I've seen that people that are successful have mentors, people that have done it before them. So they've walked that road. And they can tell them, don't take a left here, don't take a right here, watch out for this. And then they have people around them who advise them.
Absolutely. As I think about what it takes to dream big and make it big and go beyond what the limits that people put on you are, I think, you need, again, I think you need at least 4 things. I think you need faith in Allah. Your dream is as big as your dua. You need resilience, right? Because you're going to fall and get up and fall and get up. You need a generous spirit, because it can't be about you, it has to be about giving back. And you need love.
Why do you say you need love?
You need love. You need someone in your corner who's going to love you through the hardship of dreaming big. You need a mentor, but you actually need not just a mentor, but someone who's going to unconditionally love you through the heartache of dreaming big. As you think about people in our heritage, people in our history who have done amazing things, they had that person in their corner. There was a Khadija radiallahu anha in the Prophet's life, alayhi salatu wasalam, who loved him through doubt. Self-doubt. There was Harun to Musa alayhi salam, who was his companion, who he asked to be with him. So the idea that we can be lone wolves and we can do it all on our own is a foreign concept to our tradition. And it actually creates dreamers that end up being self-absorbed if they don't have someone in their corner loving them through it.
It can lead almost to like narcissism, right?
It can become
in the process.
a form of self-worship where your dream is not about serving. It's not about creating something that will correct and bring a vision to humanity that is better than what we have today. But it's going to be simply a reflection of your own ambition.
So I have a question. A lot of people say to me that they don't feel loved. So how do people find love, right? Because there's that song, looking for love in all the wrong places. And that makes us vulnerable when we all need love. You actually posted this on Facebook. Everybody follow her on Facebook and Instagram. You posted the statement of Khadija, the Prophet, Ruziqtu, my provisions came from the love of Khadija. I remember you posted this. Yes. And then in Surah Al-Duha, there is a commentary on وَوَجَدَكَ عَائِلًا فَأَغْنَى. We found you in need and we enriched you. أَغْنَاكَ بِخَدِيجَةٍ. We enriched you with Khadija, with love. So what would you say maybe to someone now who is trying to accomplish something, but they don't feel even at home love?
Well, I think that we have to start to connect with one another. I think the first step, is we have to get out of our isolation. We have to get out from behind our screens and have human interactions. Imam Suhib, one of the trends that I've seen over the past 10, 20 years is hyper-individualization in the way we engage with our faith, which is hurting our ability to dream big. Because instead of having human experiences in solidarity or in community, we're engaging with our faith from behind a computer screen. Rather than going and experiencing a riveting lecture or a halaqah, just by its very nature, is a circle. You're looking at people's faces as you're learning. That is how human beings internalize information, by seeing it in the other's eyes. But instead of doing that, many of us are accessing knowledge purely through a computer screen, even when a human interaction is available to us. So this hyper-individualization is hurting our capacity for connection, for just normal human connection, let alone love. So I think we have to get out of that and start to do things together as a community. I love the concept in our faith that we have to go to Allah in crowds, not on our own. And unless we do that, unless we find ways to connect as human beings, we are never going to find love. That's just as one very basic step.
Did you have anyone? How long have you been here? For this conference?
I came Friday night.
So did you have anyone in the last whatever few conventions you've been to, or this one, come up to you and say like, hey, you don't know me, but like you said something or you wrote something that really helped me, thank you? Did that happen?
Yes.
How did it make you feel?
Phenomenal.
Right?
Amazing.
It just happened to me.
Alhamdulillah.
This guy came to me from Canada. I don't know if the Canadians in the house. Anybody smell Tim Hortons? Anyone smell some Tim Hortons? We got Starbucks. But, so this brother from Canada, I was looking at the books in the back earlier, and I saw this brother waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And I was like, man, I think he's waiting on me. So I turned around, said, hey, can I help you? And then he said, like, you know, there was a time in my life where I was going through something and then I saw something and I just want to thank you. And I was like, shh, you know? So feeling supported is so important.
Yeah.
Right? And that's not a bad thing. Our community sometimes says, oh, you don't do what you do for that. Mm-hmm. But the Prophet said, Mubashiratul Jannah. You know, like if somebody says something good and acknowledges good that you've done. So I started thinking, like, we all need this healthy validation.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
that's why Allah says, you know, ba'duhum awliya'u ba'd. Like we legitimately scaffold one another. So being loved, I think, is crucial. And like one way to be loved is to be a lover. Mm-hmm. Right? So I may not feel valued, which is hard. I memorized the Quran. My mother was a Muslim. I come home, my mother asked me, what happened today? I said, I memorized the Quran. She said, okay, there's dinner in the refrigerator. Like, she didn't know what that means, right? So I celebrated memorizing the Quran alone. What I'm trying to say is, never underestimate, as we talk about love, like being that person that gives just good news to people. Kalima tayyiba sadaqah. Because it's a good word is called charity because you enrich the person with your good word. The other thing I was thinking about, you touched on it, and that was my third quality, is not being afraid to fail. Do you feel that we teach people to avoid failure instead of trying to achieve success?
Absolutely. I think that's exactly what we do. There's so much stigma and shame surrounding failure instead of something that we, you know, in some communities it's actually celebrated. Not to celebrate failure as if, you know, that we want to be disappointed, but the idea of seeing failure as a process and as a learning experience. And that sounds very trite, but when you define success in Quranic terms, then failure is also redefined. Success in Quranic terms is tazkiyah. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. Successful is the one who purifies it, talking about the nafs, the soul. And so if we redefine success, then dreaming big is going to require a lot of trial and tribulation, which in other words means failure, means getting disappointed, means getting hurt, means falling on your face. And to redefine that, if that led to greater purification, if that led to you praying the night, if that led to you remembering Allah in a more intimate way, then that was a success.
Right.
Even though in the eyes of society it looked like failure. And so avoiding failure is the surest way to never get to dream big. Because nobody who dreamed big and achieved big did it by not taking any risks.
Right. How many of you in this auditorium, there's something that you want to accomplish but you're scared to try? Raise your hand. I don't want this to be like a feel-good Anthony Robbins, one of those like late nights when everything is off TV and that's the only thing left, you know, you're going to accomplish greatness. But let's, as parents, we're parents.
Yep.
Let's, as parents, as we see, you know, young people, raise up your hands again. Those people that want to try to achieve, man, that's a lot of hands, mashallah. Let's all dedicate ourselves to helping those people that we know with their hands up achieve their goals. And then secondly, embrace failure. There was when I lived in the Bay Area, in San Francisco years ago, there was a man, he was a multimillionaire, Muslim guy, very humble, every day at Fajr. So I said to him, how did you become so successful? He said, I became good at failing. I failed right. And he mentioned that even as he hires people for his startup, he looks for failure not in a way that would like ruin a person, but that someone can say, hey, I learned, but I was brave enough to make an effort. So I think that's very important. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam defined success as trying. He didn't. That's modernity. Modernity has really done a whooping on us. He didn't say you have to be perfect. He said, try your best. Saddidu wa qaribu, right? Do your best.
Do your best. And you know, one thing I think is really important about being a parent, if you're going to parent a child to dream big, is we have to teach our children and ourselves how to fall. You know, in the martial arts, like judo, for example, the first thing you teach is how to fall without breaking your neck, how to fall to be able to get back up. But we don't teach how to fall, we teach how to avoid falling. And so when the inevitable will happen, which is that we will fall, we fall with such with so much damage, and we don't know how to get back up.
And it's not natural.
It's not natural.
Not a natural fall.
It's not a natural fall. And what I mean by that is, how do we teach that it is going to happen, that we're going to mess up, that we're going to disappoint ourselves and those who love us, and how to get up from that, how to not be so overwhelmed with shame that fall ends up breaking us. How do we teach our community how to fall and get back up?
MashaAllah. Yeah, that's powerful. Another thing that I've noticed about these people, outside of like worship and faith, we understand that, right? Is even though they're young, if they're 18, they have an IRA. If they're working, they appreciate financial independence, not financial opulence, right? One of the challenges we see now in contemporary entertainment and culture is like, there's no limit to, like, we see people with 5,000 pairs of shoes, man. We have people that don't have shoes. We have the head of Amazon, he has like yachts. People in New York don't have homes. Like for us, wealth, Dave Chappelle says, wealth is the fuel of choices. We make a choice to heal with our wealth. So I've seen that those people that get it, they're not aimed at opulence, they're aimed at autonomy. And
freedom.
And the Prophet ﷺ said, the best person is the one who Allah has blessed them with sufficient means, and they live a long life which is filled with good. Imam Shafi'i used to say, "In kuntu mashghulan bil bas'ala, la ufakkir fil mas'ala." If I'm thinking about onions, I can think about fiqh. So they get the game quick, that I have to be able to make certain moves. In order to make certain moves, I need to think about some type of financial autonomy.
Yeah. Well, financial autonomy gives you the ability to make decisions without getting permission. I mean, the autonomy is really an essential part of being able to dream big.
Why do you say that? Autonomy is essential to dreaming big.
Yeah.
Why do you say that? That's deep.
To have the flexibility to make your own choice, to chart your own path. And I think one of the reasons that so many of us shy away from that big dream is, as you said, fear, and so many people raise their hand. And so something I wonder if maybe we can talk about is, where do we find courage? Where does courage come from? I'll start with that. I think, as I think about moments where I've been the most afraid, So one moment I was absolutely terrified is when I was about to give my TED Talk. So I was given the enormous privilege and opportunity to give a TED Talk on the main stage of the TED conference. And the audience in this conference is extremely intimidating. You have in this actual place, this very conference that I was going to be speaking at, as other speakers were delivering their talk, I looked and I saw Steven Spielberg in the audience. I saw the founder of Twitter. I saw different celebrities. I mean, so I'm normal person about to go up on this stage, and how am I going to impress these people? I felt completely out of place. And it was like that scene, that idea where Musa alayhi salam is watching the magicians, and they're doing these, they're turning sticks into snakes, and he is actually afraid. He's afraid because he's seeing these acts of magic in front of him. And he doesn't know if he's going to be able to do that. And that was really how I felt watching these other speakers. I mean, phenomenal speeches that were on before me. And then I had to go up on this stage in the middle of this big red circle and deliver a talk that was deeply personal, and I didn't know how it would resonate with this audience. And I was absolutely crippled with fear. And the only thing that helped me over that fear was to realize, as I did my usual dua before I speak, dua, Musa, Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul uqda min lisani yafqahu qawli. He was scared before he was about to speak to Fir'aun, another very intimidating audience, alayhi salam. But he never prayed for eloquence. He was not trying to sound good. He was not trying to impress anyone. And if I was focused on impressing this audience, I would have been crippled with fear. He was focused and praying for being understood, the ability to deliver a message, a generous spirit, not a need for approval. And once I changed my mindset, I found the courage. And it came from a desire to give rather than to take. And I think so often we're afraid because we feel we are in a place of need for approval and acceptance, rather than in a place of generosity, of having something to give.
MashaAllah. As you were talking, I kept seeing my daughter's face. I have a new baby daughter. My baby daughter is MashaAllah. So cute, MashaAllah. MashaAllah. MashaAllah again.
MashaAllah.
But I think my neighbors think my daughter's name is MashaAllah. But she was born with Coombs syndrome, where her blood and her mother's blood are different. So about 2 hours after her birth, the 12th of May, which was like the 6th of Ramadan, this girl turned orange, jaundice, like orange. And I'm from the country, so we used to put babies in the windowsill in Oklahoma. And then they put her in intensive care. And then, what went from baby, was, wow, these tubes in my daughter. So I think there's two types of fear, right?
Yeah.
There's that fear that I'm trying to do something. I have a goal and I have a dream. But then there's that fear that God sometimes careens into our life and reminds us in a powerful way, even though it's not fun. It can be very emancipating that you're not really in control.
Right. Absolutely.
And it's a tough lesson. I was like, oh Allah, this is Ramadan. And my wife and I were just, and then this is crazy. You talk about insurance in America, not to get far off the subject. They would not let my wife stay in the hospital.
Wow.
The day after she gave birth, they said her insurance won't allow her to stay. So I had to get the most expensive hotel because she's stitched up. She can't walk. So I saw my wife, I learned through this fear, 5 or 6 times a day, walk to the hospital just to breastfeed this baby.
Oh my God.
So sometimes those moments of fear teach us God is in control, but وَلَا يَعْلَمُ جَنُودَ رَبِّكَ إِلَّا هُ. But God has his, my wife was one of God's soldiers that time. The second thing, if I can add to what you said, because it was amazing, in my life, when I've tried to achieve something that I was scared of, I had to block things out. And I was reading about racehorses. It's a reason why it's perfectly halal. But racehorses wear blinders.
Right.
Because if they didn't, they will start to look, and that's when they fall. So sometimes you just gotta just focus.
Right.
And that's the other quality I've seen in people that do it. They are focused. Sheikh Zakaria al-Ansari, one of the great scholars, he's buried next to Imam Shafi'i. He was so focused in writing that he went blind. They say, فُقِدَ عَنْهُ بَصْرُ. Right? That's what he has to do. Imam Shatibi writes a 1,500-line poem on all the different qira'at, and he was blind. So he didn't write it, he said it. So he imagined it in his mind, and he's never seen writing, he's never seen anything written. So what did he see? We don't know. But they said he was so focused on this. So that's, I would say, there's those areas where things are beyond my control. God is teaching me, you're not really, wallahu ala kulli shay'in qadir. So you got to leave it to God. And then there's those things where I'm trying. What I've seen helps me. When I first started learning Arabic, there was this uncle in the mosque. He was so harsh, man, in Oklahoma. He would come to me and he would say, "Ataqid, no ajnabi will learn Arabic. I don't ever think a non-Arab can learn Arabic." And I'm learning Arabic. And I was like, what's wrong with this dude? But I used to let that be that firewood, man, in the stove. And I would go home and I would bust open a Nahw al-Wadih and I would see that uncle. And I was like, one day I'm going to go to the mosque and I'm going to be like, Marhaban, قد جئت من مدينة أدمنت لكي أتعلم اللغة, and then see him get angry. And it happened. But I had to turn down invitations. I couldn't play video games with my friends. I couldn't play a lot of basketball. I had to sacrifice to stay focused.
Yeah. I think that point about sacrificing to stay focused and doing these extraordinary things that you've been able to do, it goes to this question of how do we, in our dreams, how do we be from among the few? That idea of being from among the few.
I'm going to say something that may be a little different. You got to have a little swagger to do that. Right? Not arrogance. There's a difference between arrogance and confidence. Got to be a little confident. In the sense I may not have done it, but I see myself doing it. And when I see myself doing it, I see the process of how to get there. So I'm not يُحِبُّونَ أَن يُحْبَدُوا بِمَا لَمْ يَفْعَلُوا. Allah says, they love to be praised for what they haven't done. that's not what I'm saying, but you've got to be a little brave. Maybe bravery is the word I'm looking for. And a little bit insightful as to, hey, I believe that God will help me do this, but I got to work hard. And I'd say there's a little bit of confidence, not arrogance. Because sometimes the only person I can say as a convert, there are times the only person you have to medicate you and mentor you is you in certain moments. That shouldn't be a constant. And if you're not a little bit confident, that the people will swallow you, right? So there's a healthy kind of balance of humility, grace, and thankfulness to God, adab and respect with, oh, I'm about to get this, inshallah.
How do you build that up? Because I think so many of us are feeling beat down, are feeling...
Yeah.
There's so much self-doubt, and it's perpetuated with social media. The longer you spend on social media, the worse you feel about yourself. So how do you maintain that confidence? How do you build it up?
I mean, it comes and goes. None of us are always there. But I think having mentors, if possible. If not having mentors, finding good content, finding it like your TED Talk, right? I can go online and I can find a tremendous amount of motivational, powerful, well-informed material that speaks to what I'm going through. Even reading, right? Reading is helpful. I can find people who have written about what I'm going through. So I think number one is if we're able to have some kind of mentor. So I remember the most difficult chapter in the Quran for me to memorize was Surah An-Nisa, the 4th chapter. Because every verse is, wa kana Allahu, wa kana Allahu, wa kana Allahu, wa kana. I was like, I didn't understand Arabic. I was like, what is this can? Like cans? Like can Allahu? Right? Can Allahu, can Allahu, can Allahu. I started going crazy. I memorized it. I spent the whole weekend, I was a sophomore in college, locking it down. Because the sheikh was like, you got to come on Monday. You're going to read all of Nisa. So I spent the whole weekend just hammering it. And I had to write the Quran. So I wrote a lot of it just to keep it strong. I went, first page, I made 3 mistakes. First page, 3 mistakes. The 5th page, I had a blowout. Complete blowout. And I started crying. And my sheikh, he said to me, anyone that wanted to memorize the Quran had to cry here. So you've got to have that person that reminds you your failure and your falling down is not necessarily a bad thing. This is an opportunity for you to find something new about yourself. Sometimes people on Instagram will send me a message and say, can you just tell me something good? Like, I just need someone to tell me, like, you don't even know me, but like, I got this. So I'm like, Bismillah, you got this. And they write back and they're like, oh, thank you. I don't know what they're about to do. I hope it's something good, but we need support, right? The second thing is resilience, and you said it. You just gotta push yourself. I met one time Sheikh Imar Ifat, who died in the revolution in Egypt. And I was walking in the masjid, and I was having trouble memorizing this book. So I said, Sheikh, is there any secret to memorizing the book? He said, no, hard work. So the second is resilience. And then the third is, you want to be able to stay ethical in that confidence. So if I find myself looking down on people or mistreating people, that's not confidence, that's kibr. That's arrogance.
Yeah, I think that when I felt the most confident has been when I've focused on whatever I'm doing being bigger than me, where I become incidental. to what I'm trying to accomplish. And, you know, part of at least appearing confident is appearing almost indifferent to how others perceive you, although you might not feel that way. But you're most indifferent to how others perceive you when it doesn't become about how you're perceived and it becomes about a bigger cause. So I think that part of confidence is almost counterintuitively about not thinking about yourself, thinking of yourself less. So if lack of confidence is thinking less of yourself, confidence is thinking of yourself less.
Yeah, mashallah. I don't know how we're doing this. We're both super tired. I even said to her, how did you get tennis shoes? Like, I wish I could sneak some tennis shoes on. I'm going to wear a thobe next time with some
I
Adidas
had to
boosts.
walk really fast here, so.
But something else too, you're going to say something. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was actually going to say, you know, I think we have to wrap up. We're almost done. Our time is almost up, and I wanted us to just sort of think about our final thoughts as we wrap up our dialogue.
There's two things I can reflect on, because you, mashallah, is one is, the other thing, and you touched on it, is in that process of achieving my dream, I'm not always the main star of the production. Because if I see it as a process, then there are going to be times where I have to be in the back.
Right.
And that allows me to learn the whole process of achieving this dream. When we see usually successful people, they started on the bench. Sports, right? Well, they didn't get into the school that they wanted to.
Right.
Or they did, but they didn't get where they wanted immediately. So they had to go through kind of, you know, different iterations of how that success is built as a whole, so they could appreciate the whole thing. See what I'm trying to say? The second thing is for parents and people in the audience, do not underestimate the importance of love, man. And I don't necessarily mean love that makes people, you know, get an inflated ego. Real love is also to tell people sometimes, I love you, don't do this. Because the Prophet, it's very beautiful in hadith, he called love ruhullah, the spirit of God. One of the scholars said, because just as the spirit of God brought life to a dead creature, which is us, love resuscitates people.
SubhanAllah.
It brings them life like Adam was brought to life. So there's rebirth. So one thing, sometimes parents, or even, I've been to a few mosques, and they told me, we need you to scare them back to God. I said, why don't you love them back to God? Right? Love is a resuscitative power. So as you leave tonight, you think about maybe the challenges you have at home or with your parents, and young people too. I said this today. Parents, we're very insecure. You were talking about falling. 2 days ago, I was with my daughter. We were watching Al-Kabir Al-Awi, that Egyptian musalsala. This is Egyptian series, my daughter and I, my little daughter, my baby. So I was like, mashallah, you stood up, you stood up, you stood up, you stood up. I turned, boom. I looked back, and she was on the ground, and she was like, why you do that? Right? Fall, pick them up. So I think it's important to go home and love and work on love and see love as a restorative, resuscitative instrument.
Absolutely, absolutely. And my final thought on these two topics of being among the few and achieving our dreams, and I think the reflection of love is essential. And I'll just add, is divorcing ourselves of the outcome. It's the most counterintuitive concept when you're trying to dream big. But the easiest way to not achieve your dream is to become obsessively stubborn about a specific outcome, the way that you think it has to look. And part of resilience, and this is something my husband was pointing out to me, is about flexibility, is about being agile, being able to achieve the mission without it looking exactly or the way that you think it should go. So divorcing yourself of both credit and outcome is a key ingredient to dreaming big. وجزاك الله خيرا والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.